Hi, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar live product demo. And I'm just going to walk you through some housekeeping rules, as well as give you a little bit of an overview. I'll give you an introduction of who I am and the other presenter for today. We'll look at the world of facility maintenance management, a short overview of that. Then we're going to jump right into a CMMS product demonstration, as well as some questions that we can give you guys the opportunity. If you have any while the product demo is happening, feel free to put them in the question box and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So just so you know, this webinar will be recorded. You can access it through two ways. You can access it through our resource tab by visiting eaglecmms.com, as well as our YouTube channel that is right here. You can go to our website, click on the YouTube logo, and it will take you straight to our webinar information. Today's presenters is myself. I'm Barbara van der Walt. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for Eagle Technology, as well as Jacob Mix. He's the Engineering Manager for Eagle.
Good morning.
Just to give you an overview of who Eagle is, we've been in the enterprise asset management and computerized maintenance management system market since 1986. We have thousands of users worldwide. We have international partners in 34 countries, and our software is available in 27 languages. We also work with our multinational partners if they do need another translated language. We work with our partners and our customers to get that done as well. So I'm going to jump right into what the world of facility maintenance is. Like in a global marketplace, the most things businesses and organizations rely upon to succeed are undergoing significant change. From technology to resource acquisition and to public expectation, the world is in transition. The security of a known business environment, enjoyed for years by businesses large and small, as we know it, is gone. So one thing you can still count on in your company is your assets. They're the rock on which your business stands. So how effectively and efficiently you manage them is crucial to the welfare of your business. I want to ask you this. Does your business asset management framework meet today's high demands? With a comprehensive asset management framework, you're better able to assess your company's financial strengths and flexibility. You'll also be better equipped to understand the capabilities of your assets, and you're better prepared to optimize them to the greatest advantages. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jacob to walk you through our Proteus CMMS system and some of the most fundamental features a facility manager can use. Jacob, I'm going to give it over to you.
Okay. And there we go. We should all be looking at our Proteus MMX maintenance management software screen. This is the home screen to our flagship product, Proteus MMX, which is a CMMS program at its core. What we have done is construct a program that is almost entirely asset-based and asset-driven. What this program will allow you to do is, over time, cut down your demand maintenance work orders and elevate your preventive maintenance program. That is its core feature and core function, is to get you to that point where you're spending less money on reactive or demand maintenance and getting more into the planned maintenance side of things. Proteus MMX is a web-based software package. That means that there is no or very little IT at your end that you'll require. All you'll need is an internet connection and one of our supported web browsers, and that'll get you in everywhere you need to go within the system. We also have a comprehensive mobile application that will run on your standard devices like Apple iOS or Android phones or tablets, as well as a Microsoft Surface platform if you happen to be using one of those. what we're looking at here is a personalized home screen that will show up when you log in. What these graphs represent are just various broad statistics about the work that has been done and is ongoing within your facility. So here you can see, for example, we have scheduled versus unscheduled, open work orders, completed but not closed work orders, and then some overdue. It looks like there's quite a bit overdue in this demo system. And then down below here we have a weekly overview as well, and some other kind of messaging functions. You can do inter-program messaging in the system, and then in the panel to the far right below here, we have a listing of all of those work orders that have my name on them, so I can readily access those and quickly go to those. Right. So as I mentioned, everything in CMMS is based around the idea of maintaining assets or properties. So with that in mind, the first menu we have here is our assets module. And what I'm going to do is just jump in here real quickly, and we'll take a look at some of the more common features in the program and how you can use those to get around and manipulate your equipment records as you need to. One of the things we've developed in the program is this location hierarchy tree. Here's a whole bunch of basically random demo locations that were entered by various folks here at the office. So school district, for example, offices, park district. These structures allow you to narrow down the location of where your assets exist by different structures. For example, right now we're looking at a building, and below that we have a floor, room, or area as an available container. So you can really break down a location based upon the existing physical location of those assets. And right now you can see that since I clicked on administration office, nothing showing up here. That just means that there's nothing in the administrative office. Whereas if I click at the top here, then I'm going to see everything irrespective of where it is. So this is my list of assets that need to be maintained. And strictly speaking, to begin generating work orders in CMMS, the only thing that you have to have are assets. So right out of the box, if you start using CMMS, if you fill in your assets that are most commonly being serviced, you can begin creating work orders for those right away. Everything else at the top of the screen here relates back to how you want to report and service your assets. So if I look at the inventory as an example, all of these items exist to help you manage the material cost of maintaining your assets. So we have parts and stock rooms dedicated to keeping track of the material part assets that would go into work orders and therefore contribute to the cost of maintaining your assets. It's the same idea with personnel. Using the personnel module, you can set up both employees, which would be your technicians, and labor crafts, which are our term for skills. So electrician level 1 would be, a generic example of a labor craft. What happens then is you assign that labor craft to an employee or a technician, and that helps determine their essentially, it's not really rate of pay, but the charge that would go against the asset for servicing it. The providers goes back to the inventory. From here you can set up vendors and contractors. Vendors is who you purchase goods or services from here in the inventory menu. We have a full purchasing capability as well. And since we have purchasing, it kind of allows you to create a closed loop from purchasing materials, creating a PO, closing the PO, and then assigning those materials to work orders. So you get to track it from start to finish, buying the part and using the part. The reports that we have are listed here. These are all the different categories that you can report on. These are our canned reports. To create these, what we do is use a tool called Crystal Reports, which I'm sure some of you may have heard of. And the good thing about that is that it allows you as a user, if you have that Crystal Reports tool, to go in and modify our standard default reports to make it look, a little more custom. So you'd be able to see information that's more related to you instead of what we think you should see. So here's a very simple report, for example, this is an asset report. Using Crystal Reports, you can come in here, put your logo in, change up the fields that are displayed here, and generally do pretty much anything you want, and it'll show up in the report. We also have the ability to do custom reports, and this would be fully custom reports that you've created from scratch. And basically, you can create a report using Crystal and then upload that report to CMMS, where you can then go ahead and view it in this custom report menu. And here you can see a bunch of examples of that. These are all reports created by people who wanted to see something in particular within the system that we may not have covered in the main reports menu. The next item here is service request, and what this is referring to is the ability for people who are members of your organization but not necessarily on the maintenance team. This will allow them to create a request for service for something that may be out of whack or broken or otherwise not working. A common service request example is room 123 is too hot, please send somebody to fix. That would be a service request. And all of those get submitted to this page here, where you or somebody in authority can review them and say, yes, this is a valid request, or no, this is not. And essentially, by accepting the request, you're then automatically creating a work order to rectify it, to fix it. Everything here is tracked via email, so the person who's making the request will get full notification of everything that occurs with the request. For example, once it's accepted, a note is sent back to the requester saying your service request is accepted. Here's the associated work order number. Then at the other end of that, once the work is actually done and it's completed, another note will be sent to the requester saying, work is done, ready to go, and your work order is closed. There's also actually a couple other steps you can elect to put in there in between as well. So if you want all changes tracked, you can do that. There's a lot of different ways to configure that. So what that does is it takes us right into work orders, which is kind of the main crux of the system, along with assets. And under this menu, we have all of the main functions related to both creating work orders on the fly and scheduling work orders. And I'll just briefly touch on each one of these so you can have some idea of what these are. The work orders screen is actually where you'd go to see all of your live work. So anything that is currently active, be it a scheduled work order or a work order that is demand or created from scratch, it would show up here. The work order masters are used for your scheduled PMs or your scheduled work orders. From here, you can create a template listing, the asset, location, any parts that are required, tasks, all that, and get the work order set up in advance for your PMing. And then at that same time, you can generate a schedule for that work order. And I'll go through that. You'll be able to see there's lots of different scheduling options available as far as dates and runtime. Time card is more a function related to your workers, so your technicians. What a technician can do is come in here to time card and update their labor hours. So that's really all that's intended for. The tasks module deals with tasks on a work order. So an example of a task would be, let's see, it would be a good example here. Clean workspace after work is completed. Okay, that's a very simple task, but it is something that will occur on a lot of work orders. So you can create this very large database of tasks that you'll reuse again and again, and then go ahead and assign those to the work order masters when you're creating your PMs. Inspections is a new module. I don't think we'll be going through that today, but we do allow a specific type of work order called an inspection that it works a little differently than, let's say, a preventive maintenance work order. During an inspection, you can have about 5 different question types. So it'd be, for example, yes, no, meter reading, different phrasing of questions as opposed to just a simple task stating, go here, do this. So it's a different type of work order, and inspections is an optional module that we offer. The planner is used for basically a visual aid, and it allows you to see work orders that are active this week or next week or next month. It also allows you to view overdue work orders and any work orders coming due in the future. Closed work orders and canceled work orders are both types of history in our system. And by history, I mean a read-only record of things that have occurred in the past, in this case, work orders. So anytime I'm done with a work order, I perform an action in the system called closing it. And that sends a copy of it here to closed work orders, where basically it'll sit forever unless you actively want to get rid of it. And this is really one of the most valuable parts of the system, this closed work orders history file. And the reason for that is, presuming that you've accurately filled out all the work orders with, causes and downtime and hours, that's really going to give you the metrics you need after some usage of the system to determine where your most problematic areas are. And then using a combination of reports, KPIs, and other tools, the idea is, of course, that you'll address those issues and hopefully get those issues straightened out. So again, getting you on that comprehensive PM program so that you're not having downtime, you're having scheduled work. Canceled work orders are just work orders that were not completed for whatever reason. You can cancel them, and there's just a log showing that those work orders were canceled. And the last one here is labor load balancing. This is just another tool that you can use to schedule your labor in the system and direct, the correct technicians to the place they have to be. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and open Work Order Master and show you around a little bit in here. Again, to get started, presuming you have assets, you can come right away and start creating work orders. You won't get as detailed of information, but you can do it. So all of these are examples of work orders that have been created previously with an eye towards scheduling. If I take a look, for example, at central battery equipment here, I don't know if you notice, you can see a small icon to the left of that with a green arrow. That indicates that this particular work order master is also active. So there's a live job out there related to this. And if I expand this expander window, here you can see down below that, yes, indeed, there's a yearly schedule that is currently active for this work order. So I have under my work orders area here an active work order for central battery equipment. And I'll just kind of come in here randomly and choose one of these, and we'll take a look at some of the fields available. And one thing I do want to point out is you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed by some of the fields that are displayed here. the only reason you're seeing all this stuff is because I'm logged in as kind of the super user, the administrator. Um, you have the option in Proteus CMMS to hide virtually any field within the system. So all these user fields are simply provided in case you would need them. You can rename the field and use it for whatever you want. But since I'm logged in as this Superman, for lack of a better word, I can see all these user fields. But normally that would not be the case. So here's a very simple job number. This would be how it would appear in the work orders. You can see some of the different options available for shift, priority, so on and so forth. And down below, here you can notice that I have two locations as what we call targets for this work order. And the target would be what you're actually doing the work against, in this case, a couple of assets. So that's another good point, is that with these work order masters, you can actually choose to have as many targets or assets as you wish on a single work order. And when that work order activates, it will generate work orders for each one of these assets. So you can go through, take all the work orders as a whole and perform the scheduled maintenance all at one time. Everything you're seeing to the right here is kind of related to costing of the work order and the material cost as well as the labor cost. Tools is going to allow you to add any specialized tools that are needed to complete this work. Let's take a look at tasks and labor really quickly here. Excuse me. What I have here is one of my tasks. That's what I was kind of describing earlier. You can elect to have a single task with the entire procedure, which is what was done on this particular work order. Or if you want to break it down a little bit more, you can have single line items. For example, I can take these different steps that are in the single task and break them down into multiple tasks. It's all up to you as to how you'd like to handle how this is handled or viewed within the system. I also have an employee assigned to this job. So Sergio Pace here will be on this work order and assigned to this work order once it becomes active. All right. So again, lots of fields here, lots of things you can do, but truly the only mandatory elements are a job number, maybe a description, and then an asset or target as we call it. And you can start generating work orders from there. So what I'm going to do is jump back here, and I'll just quickly take you through how we go about scheduling one of these, because right now this is just sitting here and won't automatically activate until we have a schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new, and that's going to bring up my schedule creation window. We have a couple broad categories up at the top here: daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. There's some interplay between those. Obviously, if I put 365 for the value here, that's really a yearly work order. It's not a daily, but it's just broadly categorized by the type of input you can do. In this case, we're manipulating days. If I go to weekly, we're manipulating weeks. Same thing with monthly and yearly. So you kind of get the idea. This is a very simple daily schedule. I can turn on the initiation date for today, and that's actually when the work order will start counting. So as of right now, I have this scheduled to occur every 2 days, and it will be due on the same day that it becomes active. All right. If I want to do a weekly, for example, I can set this to be every 1, 2, 3, 4, however many weeks. Let's say every 1 week on a given day. And again, you're setting it to be due on the same day, the next day, or in X number of days. And so I don't confuse anybody, when we're doing scheduling, typically you're only going to choose one of these categories to create a schedule against. But since I'm just kind of doing a demo here, I'm hopping between them. Same idea with monthly. You're choosing every X number of months to perform this work. So if I say here every 3 months on the, let's say the 15th, on the 15th day of every month is when this work order will occur. Or I can choose to have this work order occur on the first Tuesday or second Tuesday, for example. So a lot of different ways that you can schedule here. And it's the same thing with yearly. I'm sure you're getting the picture here. So once that's saved, then this work order becomes scheduled and will be ready for activation. Yeah, see, I screwed it up because I have so many different schedules here. Let's put 2 there. Yeah, well, we'll just cancel this. So that's generally how we create a schedule. You can also manually activate work orders from here too. So let's say you have some event or work order that commonly occurs and you know all the steps to fix it. You can create a work order master here, and when that event occurs, you just come up here and hit this activate button to do the work. Okay. So once a work order master is created and scheduled, what will happen is it will generate into an active work order here under the work orders. So here's where actually the technician will go in, enter the number of labor hours, put any parts he used, and then eventually close the work order out. So if we take a look at the details here, here you can see what's generated is a read-only work order number that's date-based, and that's always going to be a nice, unique way to identify a work order. But we also have job number if it was a PM. Little description here. We have 2 notes actually. We have a regular note field, which would describe internally to other technicians what was done. And then we have an internal note. This relates actually back to some building management tasks. Let's say a work order came in on somebody's apartment. Let's say you're a building management company and you're dealing with tenants. Sometimes you're going to want to put internal notes that they're not going to see in the email that's automatically sent back to them when the work order is completed. An example of that would be tenant is always calling for no problems. Okay. Obviously, you're not going to want them to see that, so this is just a note for other technicians viewing this work order, so they have a heads up. Okay. So we have our tasks and labor set, parts. Here's where the material costs come into play under our inventory. You can choose a stockroom part, and that's going to be whatever was replaced during the course of performing this work order. So let's say 2 were used. So when I close this work order, this $6.25 will be multiplied times 2, and that will become the material cost of this work order and will be tracked forever in the cost totals against the asset. Yeah, we also have tools here, and causes is another big deal that I like to talk about, because what this is the root cause of why this work order occurred in the first place. And again, going back to the main purpose of this software, which is to prevent demand maintenance, you're going to want to make sure that you track what the cause was. So again, you can go back and hopefully fix or prevent that cause from occurring again. So I'm going to go ahead and choose vandalism here. Why not? And then at that point, let's say the work order is done, I can go ahead and come up here and complete and close the work order. And I do want to close it. And so at that point, the work order is closed, and a complete copy of it is then transferred down here to closed work orders. Okay. Let's clear the filter so you can see them all. So there it is. So that's the general cycle of how work orders are created and operated within the system. There's obviously a lot more detailed things that you can do with this system, but for the purposes of a general overview, that gives you a good picture of how things work in the system. So we start in work order masters, create a schedule. The schedule becomes active on the date that it's supposed to. It pops here to work orders, wherein a technician will get a hold of the work order and actually perform what's needed, and then they'll close it. And then at that point, it becomes part of your permanent history, so you can get reporting and metrics, whatever else you want to get out of it. Right. Now, these last three items are kind of related more towards administration than anything except for KPIs. One thing I do want to point out about some of the security features of the program are some of the things that you can do with rights. We loosely based our security on Windows security, in that you have roles, and then you take your users and put them in a role. So you can define something like, let's say, technician as a role, and they're only able to see, let's say, work orders and closed work orders. All right, so when they log in to Proteus, all this stuff will be gone except for those two items. Whereas I'm logged in as administrator, so I get to see absolutely everything. A lot of times people will set up a maintenance manager account wherein the rights and settings are not visible, but everything else related to the data is. So there's literally an infinite number of ways you can configure your rights and roles, and it actually goes down right to the field level of what they can and cannot see. So if I have a technician role and I don't want them to see, I don't know, let's say priority, for example, I can turn that field off just for people in that role. So it's very, very versatile, and one of the more powerful parts of this program. KPIs are some general KPIs related to work orders. We can take a look at a couple of these, and you can kind of see some of the things we're doing currently with them. Let's take a look at, let's take a look at DM, PM, total cost by month. We'll bring this one up. So here you can see all of the total costs for these work orders. And as I hover over these headings, they appear here. You can kind of see what the costs are for these. This is not really seeing too much because this is a demo system. Another one we can take a look at is mean time between failure. And again, we don't have any data here, so let's see if I can bring some up. Nope, not in the demo system. But you kind of get the idea. There's drill downs in a lot of these. You can click on them and they'll take you to different sets of data. One nice thing we can also do here is if you have specific needs for KPIs, that is something we can also create for you along with the reports. So if you take a look at this one, for example, and say, no, I don't want it by location, I want it by, I don't know, time period. Okay, we can switch that up. That's just an example. Or if you don't like the colors, all kinds of things we can do with these, including create brand new ones according to your specifications. Let's see if we have something in the root cause failure. Yeah, well, in the demo system, I was the only one to use a cause, so that's why it's showing up here. So again, the cause function in work orders is very important as far as the operation of the program and getting the most out of it. And the last menu we have here are all of the available settings. Like I was saying before, you can get very, very detailed in how you set this up. So there's a lot of different functions that I haven't shown you that you can do to customize both the workflow, appearance, and usage of everything you see. Where it's very, very versatile in what it can do. So I guess that is your basic overview without going into too many more details. I'd love to answer any questions in particular. And at that point, I think I'll go ahead and open it for questions. Let's see what we have here.
We've had some requests for the webinar, for this webinar recording. As we mentioned in the beginning, if you go to www.eaglecmms.com, there under the resources tab, you can access our webinars through there, or there is a YouTube icon that you can use to redirect to our YouTube channel where you can also access this. And then of course we'll do a follow-up email with containing a link so that you can easily access it that way through as well. So if there is any questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Let's see what we got here. Looks like Jeff asks vehicle maintenance setup.
That seems correct, yeah.
Well, what we generally do with vehicles is we will go in and set up a PM for a runtime period. So within the asset, there is a field called runtime, and we would create the vehicle, and as soon as we've created it in assets, we'd add the current mileage. And then based on the number of times that people go check the mileage, they would come and update this particular field in assets. And eventually, when the mileage reached a specific point, it would then trigger a work order to activate automatically. And that is also done under Proteus work order masters that we had taken a look at, as well as the mileage being recorded under assets.
Okay, Jacob, just to backtrack a little bit for one of our attendees asking how detailed the asset management is. He had some technical difficulty, and I think it would be a good recap just for some of our attendants, they just want to recap on how the asset management works and how detailed it is. Do you want me to share the screen? Do you want to show them? Because the next question as well is how to set up a preventive maintenance. I'm going to quickly just, if you can run through that with them again for 2 seconds, please.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, just basically what we need to create a work order, which would be a PM, is an asset and then a work order master. So under assets, this is going to be where anything that you would wish to maintain will be kept. So again, in the example of a car, I can go ahead and create a new asset here called CAR 001, or whatever vehicle you're maintaining. Chevy Silverado. And what we do in terms of the runtime for vehicles, as an example again, is we keep track of the current runtime. So let's say we have this set to 15,000, all right? I can save this record as an asset, and then under work order masters, what I would do is create a work order master for servicing that asset. So let's call this CAR 001-PM. And I would then go ahead and add the car to this PM. We'll just do this for now, just so we can forward here. Oh, I keep forgetting to hit the right button. Bear with me. There we go. And down here, basically, you'd put the notes like, please give car 3-month 3,000 mile service. Okay, so I'm going to save that. We'll just call it preventive maintenance. Let's see what else is required here. Priority. Okay. Basically what those little pop-ups are is whoever did the demo before me set all these fields to be required. So just so you're aware. All right, so this is the master work order for that service we had talked about, which is, in this case, vehicle maintenance. So we'll do car here. We'll bring us back to our car PM. And then at this point, I'll come here and create a schedule so this work order will reoccur without having me go in and create the work order from scratch like I'm doing right now. So in this case, we're talking about a usage-based PM or a runtime PM. So I'm going to set the start runtime at 15,000 units, in this case miles. So that's what the timer will begin counting from. So this is an oil change PM, so we'll set this to every 3,000 runtime units. And in this case, runtime units is miles. Or every 90 calendar days. Okay. So 3 months, 3,000 miles. That's what this PM will be set to. And all I have to do is save that, and this PM is now ready to go and will basically generate automatically in the future whenever the runtime is hit. Okay. So assets is where you're going to go ahead and do most of your asset management in terms of creating records and storing facts and data about the assets themselves. And then under work orders is where you're going to go ahead and schedule PM jobs against those assets. Does that make sense? Let's see. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, Jacob. Another question here. Is there a way to create a purchase order from a work order?
Not directly, but you can tie them together. In other words, when I create a PO or purchase order, I have the option to tie that to a work order in a way that I will be notified when the parts get in for that job. So it's not done from work orders, it's actually done from the purchase order. So I guess the short answer to that is yes, we do it, just in a different way than was stated in the question.
And Andrew Barnes has a question here asking that how if GIS integrate with Proteus MMX.
GIS integration is something we're working on, and we expect to have something for GIS integration in the near future. Right now, we don't have that module yet.
Okay. I think that's all we have time for today. If you do have more questions that you want more answers to, or if there's more in-depth questions, if you want us to show you some more of the features and go into some detail, feel free to email us at webinars@ eaglecmms.com. We'll also send a follow-up email, and you can just respond to that email if you prefer. And like mentioned before, the recording will be available. And we want to thank you for spending time with us today. Jacob, thank you for your time working with these attendees, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you all.